When are consumers rational? That is, when our consumer preference is rational. Certain notations first, the capital X. This is the entire plane within which the consumption could take place. That is, capital X would belongs to Rn plus. That is, it belongs to the real authent of the real plane. Okay. Note that it is Rn plus and it is not Rn plus plus. As we know that we are going to consume positive commodities, but we may not consume anything. So 0 should belong to capital X. This is the consumption bundle, that is your X1 through Xn. It is an nth commodity consumption bundle. You might have seen X is equal to X1, X2. That is a two commodity consumption vector. Now this is nth commodity consumption vector. Okay. Then certain notations here. R is your weak preference relation. That is at least as good as. P is strict preference relation. That is it is strictly better than. And I is indifference relation. Okay, that is I am indifferent between the two commodities. Now certain definitions which we have to know about preferences. One, P, that is for strict preference relation, that is for all x, y, z belonging to capital X. That is, I have taken up any three consumption vectors within the consumption set X, xpy. You can say this, that X is strictly preferred to Y. Then it would actually mean X are Y and not Y are X. That is, X is at least as good as Y and Y is not at least as good as X. When you are saying this, that X is strictly preferred to Y, what you are saying is that X is at least as good as Y and Y is not at least as good as X. Remember the two connectors. One is and. Both of these conditions, they have to go on together. X is at least as good as Y and Y is not at least as good as X. When you're saying that apples are strictly preferred to oranges, when you're saying this, that apples are at least as good as oranges, but oranges are not at least as good as apples. Let me give you one example. So for example, apples give you utility of 12 utils and oranges give you utility of 10 utils. Then you know this, that 12 is strictly greater than 10. Okay, so xpy. But 12 is at least as good as 10. Okay, but 10 is not at least as good as y. Okay, so that is there, and both of these things have to go together. And another connector is this not. Okay, so you have to take care of both of these connectors here. I, that is an indifference relation, that is for all x, y, z belonging to capital X, xiy is xry and not and yrx. Okay, I may not have taken z, but by convention, since we'll be talking about transitivity and other properties, then that is the reason I've taken z also here, but that's not needed, at least in these definitions. So you could have actually gone through the definitions easily if you have taken just two consumption bundles, that are x and y. So for all x, y, z belong to capital X, xiy, if you are saying this, that x is indifferent to y, then it means this, that x are y and y are x. So for example, apples give you utility 10 and oranges give you utility 10. So 10 is at least as good as 10. 10 is indifferent to 10. Now you can say this, that those apples which give you utility 10 and oranges which give you utility 10. So you can say 10 is at least as good as 10. Apples, the 10 utility of apples and 10 utility of oranges, that is there. But 10 utility coming through oranges is also at least as good as 10 utility coming through apples. So and, okay, again this thing and is important, it is not or. Okay, now we can come to the point that when are actually preferences rational. When you can say that your preferences are rational, if R, that is a weak preference relation, it satisfies the following properties. One is reflexivity. That is for all x belonging to capital X, x r x. So a commodity vector, a consumption bundle would be at least as good as itself. Okay, so x r x is true. X is at least as good as x. Okay. Completeness. That is for all x, y belong to capital X, either x r y or y r x or both. See, when you are given two consumption bundles, say x, y, completeness just say this, that you have to tell which one you prefer. You cannot say I do not know. I do not know is not the answer. You have to tell which one you prefer. If you are living in a two commodity world, you cannot say you do not prefer anyone. Okay, so you have to say, if you are saying that you do not prefer X, then it would actually imply you prefer Y. You are given two goods, X and Y. If you are saying that you do not prefer X, it means that you prefer Y over X. If you are saying that you do not prefer Y, it means that you prefer X over Y. If you are saying that you prefer both, it means that you are indifferent. So that's what I've said, X are Y or Y are X or both. And the last is transitivity. That is, for all X, Y, Z belonging to capital X, X R Y and Y R Z would imply X R Z. So this would actually mean this, that if X is at least as good as Y and Y is at least as good as Z, then X is at least as good as Z. Okay, so this is what is being meant by this. That is, now transitivity would mean actually like this, that apples are at least as good as oranges and oranges are at least as good as bananas. Then you will say this, that apples are at least as good as bananas. Okay, so this is transitivity. There are certain conditions in which transitivity may not met. Okay, so but that is not the point of this question. Transitivity may not actually met in certain conditions, like when you have acyclic preferences, or sorry, cyclic preferences, and you might have the conditions of where transitivity doesn't hold in case of voting paradox. Okay, you might also have intransitive preferences in case of um, imperceptible preferences. Okay, so all of these conditions might be there where your transitivity assumption may not hold. Okay,